The Galactic Combat Academy floated in space near a dying star. It was the most famous military school in the universe. Warriors from 1,000 worlds came here to learn how to fight. The hallways echoed with the sounds of combat training and the heavy footsteps of creatures from every corner of known space. Marcus Webb stood in the center of the training arena, sweat dripping down his face. Around him, his human classmates stretched and prepared for the day's exercises. They looked small compared to the other species. The Vrexians had 4 arms covered in natural armor. The Kachak had exoskeletons that could stop bullets. The Drakon stood 3 meters tall with muscles like steel cables, and then there were the humans. Soft skin, fragile bones. Only 2 arms. Keither, a Vrexian champion, watched the humans with barely hidden disgust. His people had been warriors for 10 million years. Humans had only joined the galactic community 20 years ago. They were children playing at war. "Look at them," Keither said to his teammate. "They move like water plants. No structure. No strength." The training instructor, a massive Drakon named Varash, called everyone to attention. Today's exercise was simple sparring. Species were mixed together randomly. Keither found himself facing Marcus Webb. The human smiled at him. Keither found that disturbing. Who smiled before a fight? "Ready when you are," Marcus said. Keither didn't waste time. He struck fast, a controlled blow meant to test the human's defenses. His fist connected with Marcus's shoulder. The sound that followed made everyone in the arena stop and stare. Pop. Marcus' single quotes as shoulder had dislocated. The joint separated cleanly, his arm hanging at an unnatural angle. Several alien students made sounds of distress. Varash started moving toward them to stop the match. Then Marcus did something that froze everyone in place. He grabbed his own arm, braced himself, and yanked. Another pop. The shoulder was back in its socket. Marcus rolled it twice, winced, and raised his fists again. "That's gonna be sore tomorrow," Marcus said, still smiling. Keither stood stunned. The human should be screaming. Should be rushed to medical care. Should be done for the day at minimum. Instead, he wanted to continue fighting. "What? What are you?" Keither whispered. The match continued, but something had changed. Word spread through the academy like wildfire. The humans were strange, breakable. Their bodies failed in ways that would kill other species, and they just kept going. By the end of the week, the nickname had spread. The alien cadets called the human class Flimsy. It was meant as an insult. The humans had weak bones that broke easily. Their joints bent in wrong directions. They tired faster than almost every other species. During long-distance runs, they finished last. During strength tests, they ranked near the bottom, but there was something else. Something the alien cadets couldn't quite understand. Every day the humans came back. Every injury seemed to teach them something instead of stopping them. Sarah Chun broke her wrist during grappling practice. She had it set and was back the next day, fighting with one hand. Another human, David Park, tore ligaments in his knee. He wore a brace and modified his fighting style. Within a week, he was beating opponents who had both legs working perfectly. The Academy's medical staff had never been so busy. The human cadets visited the regeneration tanks more than all other species combined. But they also healed faster than expected. The doctors couldn't explain it. Human bodies seemed designed to be damaged and repaired over and over. "It's like they expect to be broken," one medic told Varash. Their whole biology is built around recovery. 2 months into the semester, Instructor Chun arrived. He was human, an older man with gray hair and scars covering his arms. He was the first human to ever graduate from the academy 20 years ago. Now he was back to train the new generation. His first lesson was strange. "You've all been training wrong," he told the human cadets. The other species watched from a distance, curious. "You're trying to fight like them. Trying to be strong like them. That's not how humans win." "Then how do we win?" Marcus asked. Chun smiled. It was not a kind smile. "We survive. Everything else is optional." That night, Keither couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the humans, about Marcus putting his shoulder back in place. about Sarah fighting with a broken wrist, about the way they all smiled before matches. Like they knew a secret, he accessed the Academy's database and searched for information about Earth, the human homeworld. What he found made his blood run cold. Earth was classified as a Category 12 death world, the highest classification. A planet where almost everything was designed to kill you. Predators with venom, diseases that could wipe out entire populations. Whether that could freeze or burn you in hours, earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis, humans had evolved in hell. And it showed in their bodies. They weren't built to be strong. They were built to take damage and keep moving. Their bones could break and heal. Their muscles could tear and regrow stronger. Their skin could burn and regenerate. Even their minds were designed to override pain signals when necessary. Keither realized something that made his scales itch. The humans weren't bad at fighting. They were fighting a different kind of war. One where victory wasn't about strength or speed. It was about still being alive when your enemy gave up. The next day, the Academy made an announcement. The Grand Melee was beginning in 1 month. It was a tournament held every year on a hostile moon. 100 teams would enter. Only one would win. It was brutal, dangerous, and optional. Every single human cadet volunteered. The alien students laughed. The flimsy humans thought they could survive the Grand Melee. Teams of experienced warriors failed every year. What chance did humans have? Keither didn't laugh. He had read about Earth, about the predators humans had outlasted not through strength but through persistence. About how humans used to hunt by simply following prey for days until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. That evening, he saw Instructor Chun talking to the human cadets outside the training hall. Keither moved closer, staying in the shadows. "Remember," Chun said quietly, "out there they'll have every advantage. They're stronger, tougher, better armored. But you have something they don't." "What's that, sir?" Sarah asked. Chun's smile was predatory. "You're from Earth. You're already used to everything trying to kill you. For them, it'll be a nightmare. For you, it'll be Tuesday." The humans laughed. It was a disturbing sound, confident, almost eager. Keither walked away, a strange feeling in his chest. For the first time in his life, he was glad he wasn't facing humans in real combat. Because he was starting to understand something terrifying. The humans weren't flimsy at all. They were the opposite. They were made of something that bent instead of breaking. And when everything else shattered, they would still be standing. The Grand Melee was going to be interesting. The transport ship dropped 100 teams onto Cravo 7, a moon that hated life. Heavy gravity pulled at everyone's bodies. Acid rain fell from purple clouds. In the distance, something roared, and it didn't sound friendly. Marcus Webb checked his equipment one last time. Around him, his 9 teammates did the same. They were the smallest team by body size, and the bookmakers had given them terrible odds. 847 to 1 against winning. Most bets were on whether they would survive the first week. "All right," Sarah Chun said, pulling up a map on her scanner. "Most teams will fortify a position and defend it." "What's our play?" Marcus grinned. "We do what humans do best. We keep moving." Keither's Vrexian team had established camp on a rocky hill with good sight lines. It was textbook military strategy. Secure high ground, establish defenses, send out scouts. His team worked efficiently, setting up barriers and sensor nets. On the second day, his scouts reported something strange. The human team hadn't stopped moving. They had covered 3 times the distance of any other team. They were mapping the entire territory. "That's impossible," Keither said. "They need to rest. Even humans need sleep." His second-in-command pulled up thermal tracking data. They're rotating sleep schedules. Some team members sleep while others keep watch and keep moving. They maintain 24-hour operations. Keither felt that uncomfortable feeling again. The one he got when thinking about humans. On his world, everyone rested at the same time. It was natural. The idea of constant, never-ending activity seemed wrong, exhausting, but humans came from Earth, a planet that never stopped trying to kill you. Maybe they had learned never to stop moving. By day 3, 15 teams had already been eliminated. The moon's environment was harsh. Predators hunted in packs. The acid rain dissolved inadequate shelter. The heavy gravity strained bodies not adapted for it. The humans looked tired. Their faces showed strain, but they kept moving. On day 4, everything changed. A creature emerged from the forest. The locals called it a Kravos render. It was 6 meters long, covered in armored plates, with claws that could tear through steel. It was the apex predator of the moon. It attacked the Selenite team without warning. The Selenites were famous for their crystalline armor and defensive capabilities. They were one of the favorites to win the tournament. The render tore through them in minutes. 3 Selenites died. The rest fled, officially out of the competition. Keither watched the footage from this camp's sensors. The creature was unstoppable. Every team would need to avoid it or hide from it. There was no fighting something like that. Then his sensors picked up movement. The human team was tracking the render. "They're insane," his teammate said. "They're going to get themselves killed." But Keither wasn't so sure. He remembered the database entry about Earth, about humans who used to hunt massive predators not by overpowering them, but by outlasting them. He switched his sensors to follow the humans. Marcus Webb moved through the forest like a ghost. Behind him, his team spread out in a loose formation. They had been following the render for 6 hours. The creature was fast and powerful, but it needed to rest. Humans didn't. Not really. They could keep going long after their bodies screamed at them to stop. "It's resting near the river," Sarah whispered over comms. Breathing hard. "We've been running it in circles." The plan was simple and brutal. Don't fight the creature's strengths. Attack its weaknesses. Everything needed to rest. Everything had limits. Even apex predators. For 16 hours they pushed the render. Never giving it time to recover. Always appearing just when it started to relax. Forcing it to run, to charge, to waste energy. They took shifts, staying fresh while the creature exhausted itself. When it finally collapsed, its massive heart simply gave out. It hadn't lost a fight. It had lost a marathon. The humans didn't celebrate. They immediately began harvesting materials from the corpse. Armor plates for shields. Tendons for rope. Meat for food. Nothing was wasted. Keither watched this and felt something he rarely experienced. Fear. The humans hadn't won through superior strength. They had won through something more terrifying. Pure, relentless persistence. They had simply refused to stop until the bigger, stronger creature died. What kind of species evolved to do that? Week 2 arrived. 70 teams remained. The tournament was entering its critical phase. Resources were running low. Territory disputes were getting violent. An acid storm rolled in, worse than anything before. Warning sirens blared across the moon. All teams scrambled for shelter. Keither's team found a cave system and moved inside quickly. The acid rain could burn through armor given enough time. Inside the caves, they would be safe. As they set up emergency camp, they heard voices. Human voices. The human team emerged from a deeper tunnel. Both groups stopped, staring at each other. By tournament rules, they should fight. But the storm outside was getting worse. Fighting now would be stupid. Truce until the storm passes? Marcus offered. Keither nodded. Agreed. They shared the cave in tense silence at first. But as hours passed, conversation began. Keither found himself talking to Sarah Chun. "Why do you keep fighting?" he asked. "Your bodies break so easily. Don't you feel pain like we do?" Sarah laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "We feel pain just fine. Maybe more than you. But humans learned something a long time ago. Pain is just information. It tells you something is wrong. It doesn't have to stop you. That sounds like madness." "Maybe," Sarah agreed. "But it kept us alive. You know what Earth was like? Everything wanted to eat us. We weren't the strongest or fastest. We had no claws, no armor, no venom. We should have died out. But we didn't. You know why?" Keither waited. Because we're too stubborn to quit. We just kept going. When the lions chased us, we climbed trees. When the cold came, we made fire. When disease struck, the survivors adapted. We're not the best at anything. We're just really, really hard to kill. Keither thought about this. His species had evolved on a paradise world. Plenty of food. Few predators. They had become strong because they could. Humans had become persistent because they had to. The storm raged for 2 days. On the second day, the cave system began to collapse. A deep rumbling filled the tunnels. Rocks fell from the ceiling. Within minutes, the entrance was buried. Both teams worked together, trying to find another way out. But the collapse was complete. They were trapped. Worse, the air was getting thin. One of Keither's teammates did the calculations. With reduced oxygen, the Vrexians could survive maybe 3 hours. The humans, with their inefficient lungs and high oxygen needs, would die even faster. Keither looked at Marcus, expecting to see panic. Instead, the human was smiling again. That disturbing smile. "You know the funny thing about humans?" Marcus said. "We're actually pretty good at not breathing." "What does that mean?" Keither asked. "It means," Sarah said, settling into a sitting position, "that you're about to learn why humans evolved near oceans." The humans began to breathe in a strange pattern. Deep breaths, then long periods of nothing. Their heart rates dropped. Their movements slowed. Within minutes, they looked almost dead. "They're entering voluntary hypoxic states," one of Keither's teammates said, scanning them with medical equipment. "They're reducing their oxygen needs by nearly 70%. How is that possible?" Keither had no answer. He just watched as the humans sat motionless, barely breathing, waiting. Their bodies were adapting to survive in conditions that should kill them. 3 hours passed. Then 5, then 10. The Vrexians were struggling now, gasping for air. The humans remained still, waiting, surviving. On hour 12, rescue teams broke through. The Vrexians needed immediate medical attention. Their bodies were shutting down from oxygen deprivation. The humans woke up instantly. Fully alert. Ready to move. "Thanks for the nap," Marcus said, stretching. "We needed that." Keither was carried to medical transport, barely conscious. His last thought before passing out was crystal clear. The humans weren't nicknamed Flimsy as an insult anymore. It was becoming something else. A warning. Because what looked fragile was actually the most dangerous thing in the tournament. When you can't be broken, because you're designed to bend and recover, you become something terrifying. You become inevitable. And Keither was starting to understand that humans were the most inevitable thing the galaxy had ever seen. 20-3 teams remained when Keither woke up in the medical bay. His body ached from oxygen deprivation. The doctor said he was lucky to be alive. Another hour in those caves and his brain would have suffered permanent damage. The humans had walked out on their own power. No medical care needed. They were already back in the field. Keither pulled up the tournament standings on his medical screen. The humans had moved up to 7th place. Not through victories in combat, but through sheer survival. While other teams fought and eliminated each other, the humans just kept existing, outlasting everyone. His tactical officer visited that evening. "You need to see this," she said, showing him footage. "The humans are fighting the Korthax Collective." Keither sat up too quickly, pain shooting through his chest. The Korthax were the second favorites to win. They were a hive mind species with adaptive armor. Their exoskeletons could change in real time, learning from attacks and becoming immune within minutes. They were nearly impossible to defeat. The footage showed the first engagement. The humans used conventional tactics. Energy weapons, explosives, coordinated strikes. Everything worked for about 3 minutes. Then the Korthax armor adapted. Bullets bounced off. Energy beams were absorbed. The humans retreated, taking casualties. "They lost," Keither said. "Watch the next day," his officer replied. The second engagement was different. The humans weren't trying to win. They were trying to confuse. They attacked from stupid angles. Retreated when they had advantages. Switched weapons randomly. used tactics that made no tactical sense, and the Korthax started to struggle. Their hive mind was designed to find patterns and optimize against them. But the humans weren't following patterns. They were being deliberately random, chaotic, unpredictable. The Korthax central cortex is overheating, the officer explained. Their armor is cycling through adaptations so fast it's degrading. The humans are breaking them by being impossible to predict. Keither watched as the battle continued for 14 hours straight. The Korthax tried to disengage multiple times, but the humans wouldn't let them rest, wouldn't let them recover. Just kept applying pressure, switching tactics, being annoying. Finally, the Korthax surrendered. Their hive mind was on the verge of thermal shutdown. They had been fought to death by chaos. That shouldn't be possible, Keither whispered. Humans shouldn't be possible, his officer replied. But here they are. 3 days later, Keither was released from medical care. His team had dropped to 15th place. The humans were now 4th. And the finals were approaching. Only 3 teams remained in contention. The humans now ranked 3rd. Keither's Phyrexians in 2nd. And the Drakon Imperium in 1st place. The Drakon had won the Grand Melee 12 times in a row. They were warrior philosophers combining perfect technique with strategic genius. Their leader, War Master Torvin, was considered the greatest fighter in the galaxy. That evening, a message arrived at every remaining camp. It was from Torvin, addressed specifically to the humans. You fight without honor, the message said, without form or discipline. You are chaos-given flesh. We will restore order to this tournament. We will show the galaxy that true warrior spirit defeats base survival instinct. Marcus read the message and laughed. Sarah stood beside him, checking her equipment. He really doesn't get it, does he? She said, None of them do, Marcus replied. They think fighting is about honor and technique. They don't understand that fighting is just problem-solving with violence. And humans are really good at solving problems. Instructor Chun arrived at their camp that night. He looked at his students with pride. They were battered, scarred, exhausted. 3 had broken bones. 2 had concussions. All of them had injuries that would hospitalize normal soldiers. All of them were smiling. Final arena was announced, Chun said. Urban warfare simulation. Ruined city environment. But there's a twist. There's always a twist, David Park said. Gravity will fluctuate randomly, Chun continued. Between 0.5G and 3G, no pattern. No warning. It'll test every team's ability to adapt. The human team looked at each other. Then they started laughing. Real, genuine laughter. Keither, listening from his own camp nearby, didn't understand. Fluctuating gravity was deadly. It would tear bodies apart. Why were they laughing? Chun smiled at his students. They designed this arena to test adaptability. They have no idea they just gave you the advantage. Because we're flimsy, Sarah said. Because you're elastic, Chun corrected. Rigid structures break under stress. But you bend? Every joint in your body is designed to move in multiple directions. Your spine flexes. Your muscles stretch. You're built for adaptation. Marcus stood, testing his repaired shoulder. It clicked slightly but held. So while they're trying to compensate for the gravity changes, you'll be surfing them, Chun finished. Use the environment. Let it work for you, not against you. Remember what makes you human. And what's that? Someone asked. Chun's expression turned serious. You're the species that looked at every impossible obstacle and said, yeah, but what if we just don't quit? That's your superpower. Not strength. Not speed, stubbornness. The next morning, the final arena opened. It was a massive ruined city, 10 square kilometers of broken buildings and rubble. The 3 teams entered from different positions. Immediately, the gravity shifted. 3G crushing weight pressed down on everyone. The Drakon warriors in their heavy armor slowed dramatically. Keither's team struggled, their forearms giving them some stability, but the weight still immense. The humans dropped everything. Weapons, packs, anything not essential. They went prone, distributing their weight, and they started moving, crawling like insects through the rubble. Gravity shifted again. Point 5G the Drakon launched a coordinated assault, flying between buildings with practiced precision. They were magnificent, like deadly ballet dancers. Then they encountered the humans. And everything went wrong. The humans were using the low gravity like they were born to it, pushing off walls, changing direction mid-flight, turning their flexible spines into springs. Sarah Chun bounced off 3 surfaces in 2 seconds, coming at a Drakon warrior from an impossible angle. They fight like there are no rules. One Drakon shouted over Combs. Because on Earth, there weren't any rules, Marcus said, appearing behind him. Can just survive or die? The battle became chaos. The Drakon tried to maintain formation, but the humans were everywhere and nowhere. The gravity kept shifting. 1, G2, G.7, G3, G again. In 3G, something terrible happened. Sarah's ankle snapped. The sound echoed across the battlefield. She went down hard. Any other species would be done. Out of the fight. Sarah looked at her leg, at the bone pushing against skin at a wrong angle. She pulled out a piece of rebar from the rubble, used her belt to strap it against her leg as a splint. Then she continued fighting on 3 limbs. Keither watched from his position, his blood running cold. That was insane. That was impossible. That was human. Gravity surged to 3G again. David Park's femur broke. The crack was audible even over the sound of combat. He screamed. Then he screamed louder. Then he stopped screaming, found something to use as a splint, and kept moving. What are they? Torvin's voice came over the open channel, shocked. What is wrong with them? Marcus answered between labored breaths. Nothing's wrong with us. We're just from Earth. This is what happens when evolution makes you choose between quitting and dying. We chose dying. Every single time. And then we survived anyway. The gravity dropped to 0. Marcus, fighting with dislocated ribs and a concussion, tackled Torvin through a wall. Both crashed into a building. Both were hurt beyond any reasonable ability to continue. Marcus whispered something to Torvin. Keither's sensors barely picked it up. The difference between you and me? Your species stops when it hurts. Mine stops when it's done. Then the gravity went insane. 3G, 0G, 2G, 0.5G, 1.5G cycling every few seconds. Arena control announced a malfunction. This wasn't supposed to happen. People were going to die. The Drakon team retreated to shelter, formally surrendering. They valued their warriors' lives too highly to continue. Keither's team did the same. This wasn't survivable. They pulled back, officially out of the tournament. The humans advanced into the chaos. The arena control room was in panic. Engineers scrambled to fix the gravity malfunction. Medical teams prepared for mass casualties. The tournament officials were screaming at each other about liability and safety protocols on the screens. The humans kept moving forward. Sir, we need to halt the tournament, one official said. Those gravity fluctuations will kill them. Their bodies will tear apart. The head official watched the monitors. He had overseen 20 grand melees. He had seen warriors from 100 species. He thought he understood combat. But this was something new. They're not fighting the gravity, he said quietly. They're working with it. In the arena, Marcus Webb experienced 3G and felt his bones creak. Instead of fighting it, he let his body collapse, spreading the impact. The moment it shifted to 0G, he pushed off, using his flexible spine to orient instantly. When it went to 2G, he was already braced. His mind was barely functioning. Concussion made thinking hard. His ribs were definitely broken. His shoulder kept slipping out of socket. But his body knew what to do. Millions of years of evolution had designed human bodies for one thing, not dying. Sarah Chun crawled through rubble on 3 limbs, her broken ankle dragging behind her. The pain was incredible. Her vision kept blurring. But there was a space in her mind, a place humans could go when everything hurt, where she could watch the pain like it was happening to someone else. Earth had taught her ancestors that pain was just data. Information about damage? It didn't have to control you. You could acknowledge it and keep moving anyway. 3 humans were still mobile out of 10. David Park had a broken leg. Marcus had multiple injuries. Sarah had a compound fracture. The rest of the team was unconscious or too damaged to continue, but they were still moving toward the extraction point. Still in the tournament. "This is Control," a voice blared over speakers. "All teams stand down. This is a safety halt. The tournament is suspended until negative," Marcus said into his comm. "We didn't hear any official withdrawal announcement. Tournament rules say we continue until someone reaches extraction or all teams surrender. We're not surrendering." In the control room, lawyers started arguing about regulations. The humans were technically correct. The tournament had specific rules. Unless officially canceled by the Grand Council, it continued, but the Council couldn't convene for hours. And in those hours, the humans would either reach extraction or die. Tor single quotes van. The Drakon War Master stood in his team's shelter and watched the monitors. His warrior's pride wanted to look away. These humans were making a mockery of combat discipline. They had no formation, no strategy, no regard for proper tactics, but they were winning. Against every law of warfare he knew they were winning. How? His second asked, "How are they still moving?" Torvin understood now, and the realization made him feel old. "Because we train to be warriors. They train to survive. Those are not the same thing." But surely survival instinct would tell them to stop? To save themselves? "No," Torvin said. "That's what we don't understand about humans. Their survival instinct doesn't tell them to stop. It tells them to keep going no matter what. Because on their world, stopping meant death. Moving meant a chance. Even a small chance. They're biologically wired to choose the painful option if it means staying alive." On screen, Marcus reached a vertical wall. In 1G, it would be climbable. But the gravity was shifting every few seconds. He started climbing anyway. 3G hit. He held on, his grip somehow maintaining despite the crushing weight. 0G he pushed upward rapidly. 2G he braced. 0.5G he climbed faster. His hands were bleeding. His shoulder kept dislocating. He was crying from pain. But he kept climbing. Keither watched from his shelter. And something fundamental shifted in his understanding of the universe. He had thought strength mattered. That power, technique, and skill determined victory, but the humans were teaching him a terrible lesson. None of that mattered if you simply refused to stop. If you broke all your bones and kept crawling, if you dislocated every joint and kept moving, if you lost consciousness and woke back up and continued, "They're not warriors," his teammate said. "They're something else." "They're nightmares," Keither replied. "They're what happens when a species evolves on a world that never stopped trying to kill them. They learn to be unkillable. Not because they're tough, but because they're too stupid to know when they're dead." Sarah reached the extraction point first. She collapsed immediately, her broken ankle finally giving out completely. Her leg was twisted at an angle that made the medical staff watching gasp in horror. 3 ribs were cracked. She had a partially collapsed lung. She refused medical evacuation until her team was accounted for. "Not leaving," she said, each word painful. "Not until everyone's out?" David arrived next, hopping on one leg, using a piece of rebar as a crutch. His femur was definitely broken. He had splinted it with debris and tape. He sat down next to Sarah, and they leaned on each other, keeping watch. Marcus was still climbing. The gravity shifted to 3G. He lost his grip. Started to fall. Somehow caught himself with one hand. The shoulder dislocated again. He screamed. Put it back in. Kept climbing. "Someone stop him," a medical officer said. "He's going to kill himself." "You can't stop humans," Instructor Chun said. He was in the control room now, watching his students. Tears ran down his face, but he was smiling. "You can only witness them. This is what we are. This is what Earth made us." Marcus reached the top. Pulled himself over. The extraction point was 50 meters away. Might as well have been 50 kilometers. His body was done. He had nothing left. He started crawling, inch by inch. The gravity kept shifting. 3G0, G2, G1, G. Each change was agony. Each movement cost everything he had, but humans had crawled before. Ancient humans, wounded by predators, had crawled back to their tribes, had dragged themselves through deserts and jungles and frozen wastelands, had refused to die because something deep in their DNA said, "Not yet, not here, keep moving." Marcus had that same voice. It was screaming now, demanding he continue. Pain was temporary. Quitting was forever. He reached the extraction point, touched the marker. The tournament was over. Humans had won. Then Marcus passed out. His body finally got permission to stop, and it took that permission immediately. Medical teams rushed in. The human casualties were catastrophic. Broken bones throughout all three mobile team members. Internal injuries, concussions, damage that would require weeks of regeneration. Therapy. The doctors were amazed any of them were alive. More amazed that they had continued fighting. Most amazed that they had won. "Their pain tolerance must be incredible," one doctor said. "It's not tolerance," Chun corrected. "They feel pain just fine. More sensitively than most species, actually. They just have an override switch. Evolution gave them the ability to tell their bodies to shut up and keep working." The award ceremony was scheduled for 3 days later, but the humans needed weeks of treatment. The tournament officials made an exception. They would hold the ceremony when the humans could attend. Torvin visited Marcus in the medical bay. The human was in a regeneration tank, floating in healing fluid, looking small and fragile. "I apologize," Torvin said to the unconscious human. "We called you Flimsy. We thought it meant weak. We didn't understand. Your bodies aren't weak. They're expendable. You fight like you have spare parts. Like death is just an inconvenience." Marcus's eyes opened. The regeneration fluid made his voice strange, bubbling. "We do have spare parts. It's called evolution. We break and heal stronger. That's how Earth works. That's how we work. It's terrifying," Torvin admitted. "Yeah," Marcus agreed. "We know, but it kept us alive when everything else on our planet wanted us dead. So we're okay with being terrifying. Better than being extinct." Keither came to visit too. He stood outside Sarah's regeneration tank, watching her sleep. Her ankle was being rebuilt at the cellular level. Her ribs were fusing back together. Her lung was re-inflating. In 2 weeks, she would be completely healed, ready to break herself again if needed. "I understand now," Keither said to Chun, who was visiting his students. "Why you call yourselves Flimsy? It's a joke, isn't it?" "Yeah," Chun said. "The joke is we're not flimsy at all. We're elastic. We're redundant. We're over-engineered by a planet that tried to kill us for millions of years and lost. Calling us flimsy reminds us that what looks like weakness is actually our greatest strength." "What strength is that?" Chun smiled. "We bounce back, always. No matter what breaks us, we heal and come back stronger. That's not a bug in our design. That's the only feature that matters." 3 months later, the Galactic Combat Academy held its graduation ceremony. The Grand Hall was filled with dignitaries from across known space. Graduates from dozens of species stood in formation, wearing their dress uniforms with pride. The human class stood together. All 10 of them had survived the Grand Melee. All 10 bore scars that would never fully fade. Marcus's shoulder still clicked sometimes. Sarah walked with a barely noticeable limp. David's leg had healed, but he said he could feel weather changes in the bone now. They wore their scars like medals. The Academy Commandant, an ancient being from a species that had seen empires rise and fall, stepped to the podium. His voice carried across the hall without amplification. "Today we recognize exceptional achievement," he began. "The Grand Melee has been held for 300 years. Many have won, but few have won the way this year's champions did." The holographic displays showed footage from the tournament. Other species watching looked uncomfortable as they saw the humans fighting through injuries that should have killed them. Saw them crawl when they couldn't walk. Saw them continue when they should have stopped. The human team demonstrated something we had forgotten, the Commandant continued. That victory is not always about strength or skill. Sometimes it is simply about refusing to surrender, about persisting when persistence seems impossible. He gestured to the humans. These warriors have earned the Crimson Protocol designation? This honor is reserved for combat specialists from Tier 1 Death Worlds. They are only the second species from their world to achieve this in our Academy's history. The hall erupted in applause. The humans stood at attention, though Marcus could see Sarah's hands shaking slightly. They were still getting used to being celebrated instead of mocked. But they have also requested something unusual, the Commandant said. They wish to officially adopt their tournament calsign as their unit designation. Confused murmurs spread through the hall. The Commandant smiled, which was rare for his species. They wish to be known as Flimsy Squad. The other graduates looked shocked. That had been an insult. A mockery. Why would anyone want to keep it? Marcus stepped forward, his voice clear. Permission to explain, sir? Granted. Marcus faced the assembled crowd. He saw aliens who could lift ships, species with armor that could stop tank rounds, warriors who had trained for decades in combat arts older than human civilization. When we arrived here, you called us flimsy, Marcus said. You meant it as an insult. Our bodies break easily. Our bones are fragile. We're weak compared to most of you. And you were right about all of that. He paused, letting that sink in. But you were wrong about what it meant. You thought flimsy meant useless. But flimsy just means flexible, adaptable, hard to permanently break. You can bend us, damage us, break our bones and tear our muscles. And we'll heal. Come back. Try again. Sarah stepped forward to stand beside him. On Earth, nothing was easy. Every day was survival. We're not the strongest species. We're not the fastest or the toughest. But we're the most annoying. We don't quit. We don't know how. That's not training. That's biology. David joined them. So yeah, we're flimsy. And we're proud of it. Because being flimsy means we're still here when the rigid things have shattered. The hall was silent for a moment. Then Keither started clapping. Slowly at first, then faster. Other graduates joined in. Even Torvin stood and bowed his head in respect. The Commandant nodded. So let it be recorded. Flimsy Squad, the first human unit to graduate with Crimson Protocol. May the galaxy remember what you taught us. After the ceremony, there was a reception. Marcus found himself surrounded by alien graduates asking questions. How did humans tolerate so much damage? How did they keep fighting? What was their secret? There's no secret, Marcus kept explaining. We just evolved on a planet that never stopped trying to kill us. Everything there was faster, stronger, more dangerous than we were. We should have gone extinct. But we didn't because we had one advantage. What advantage? A K-Chak warrior asked. We were too dumb to know we should quit, Marcus said with a grin. And after a few million years, that stubbornness got coded into our DNA. Now we can't quit even if we want to. It's literally built into us. Torvin approached Marcus privately. The War Master looked older somehow, tired. I have studied human history since the tournament, Torvin said. Your wars, your struggles. I see now that you have been fighting yourselves because you had no worthy opponents. Your species is terrifying because you evolved to fight everything, including each other. Marcus nodded. Yeah, Earth made us survivors. Then we had to figure out what to do with all these survival instincts when we weren't being hunted anymore. That's been ... complicated. I am glad humans are joining the galactic community as allies, Torvin said. I would not want to face you as enemies. Neither would we, Marcus admitted. Humans fighting humans is the worst thing in the universe. Because both sides absolutely refuse to quit. Keither found Sarah at the reception. His forearms gestured in formal Vrexian respect. I misjudged your species, he said. I thought you were weak. I was wrong. You are not weak. You are something more dangerous. You are relentless. Sarah smiled. You know, it's funny. Humans don't think we're special. To us, this is just normal. We think everyone can push through pain and keep going. We're always surprised when other species can't. That is because you are insane, Keither said, but he was smiling. But perhaps that is what the galaxy needs? A little insanity. A little refusal to accept when something is impossible. The reception continued into the night. Stories were shared. Bonds were formed. The human graduates were no longer outsiders. They were warriors who had earned their place through the oldest test of all, simple. Stubborn survival. As the ceremony ended and graduates began to leave for their new assignments, Instructor Chun gathered his students one last time. I'm proud of you, he said. You showed the galaxy what humans are. Not the strongest, not the fastest, but impossible to stop. What happens now? Sarah asked. Now you go out there and do what humans do best, Chun said. You survive. You adapt. You persist. And whenever someone says something is impossible, you prove them wrong by simply not quitting. Marcus looked at his classmates. They had started as the joke of the academy. The weak ones. The flimsy ones. Now they were legends. Not because they had become stronger, but because they had shown that strength wasn't what mattered. So we keep the name? David asked. We keep the name, Marcus confirmed. Flimsy Squad, because we want everyone to remember. The things that bend don't break. The things that can be damaged can be healed. And the species that should have died millions of years ago is still here, still fighting, still too stubborn to quit. Years later, the name Flimsy would spread across the galaxy. But it would no longer be an insult. It would be a designation, a warning, a promise. Flimsy meant human, and human meant something that would keep coming, keep adapting, keep surviving long after everything else had fallen. In the Academy's combat database, the final entry was added to the file on human combat doctrine, threat assessment, maximum, not because of superior capability, but because of infinite persistence. Humans do not win by being better. They win by still being there when everyone else has quit. Recommended response to human opposition: none. Do not engage in prolonged conflict. They will outlast you. Not because they are superior, but because they genuinely do not understand that they should stop. Exercise extreme caution. They call themselves flimsy. They are anything but. And across the galaxy, whenever someone faced an impossible task, whenever the odds were too great and victory seemed unreachable, a new saying began to emerge. Be like the humans. Be flimsy. Because the flimsy things, the ones that bent and adapted and refused to break no matter what, those were the things that survived when everything rigid had shattered. And humanity, flimsy as they were, had survived everything their terrible planet had thrown at them. The galaxy would be no different. They would bend. They would break. They would heal. And they would keep going. Always, because that was what being human meant. And the universe was beginning to understand just how terrifying that simple fact really was. Marcus Webb, graduated warrior of the Galactic Combat Academy, commander of Flimsy Squad, stood on the Academy's observation deck and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there were challenges, threats, impossible situations. He smiled. Good. Humans were really good at impossible. As long as they simply refused to quit, nothing could truly stop them. That was the secret. The only secret that mattered. Not strength, not skill. Just pure, stubborn, relentless, absolutely insane persistence. The kind of persistence that only came from 4 million years of Earth trying to kill you and failing. The kind of persistence that made you flimsy and fierce and absolutely, completely unstoppable, and the galaxy would learn. Eventually, they would all learn. The humans were here, and they weren't leaving. Because leaving would require quitting. And humans didn't know how to do that.